Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com.
Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at the Captain America 75th Anniversary expansion for Marvel Legendary, a deck building game. That's quite a mouthful, from Upper Deck. As the name implies, this is celebrating the 75th anniversary of Captain America's creation, and as such, it is sort of being a celebration of all the different versions of Captain America, or most of them anyways. As with any good Marvel character that's been around for 75 years, some really weird stuff has happened to him, even Captain America, but this focused on what I think is some of the coolest aspects of him. Of course, you do need the base game of Marvel Legendary to play. This is going to introduce 5 new heroes, 2 new masterminds, a couple new villain groups, and some new schemes that are very interesting as well. You'll be playing with versions of Captain America, in addition to the one that's already in the base game, which is normal Captain America. You'll be playing with 1941 Hitler-punching Captain America, and the Winter Soldier, and an Agent Carter type character I had never heard of before, and also the Falcon, I forget his real name at the moment, the Falcon Captain America, and Captain America Director of S.H.I.E.L.D., who I didn't even know about. All these different types you will be playing as. So let me go ahead and give you a brief look at all this stuff that comes in the expansion, then we're going to come back and we'll talk about it.
The Captain America 75th Anniversary expansion for Marvel Legendary is a small box expansion for the game, and of course you need one of the 2 base games to play, either the base game of Legendary or Legendary Villains. It features 5 new heroes, 2 new masterminds, 2 villain groups, and 4 schemes. All of these are related to the various incarnations of Captain America and friends over the years. As a side note, just in case, I'll point out that I sleeve all of my Legendary, and those sleeves don't come with the game, just to avoid any confusion. Let's start with the heroes. First you have Cap from 1941, who will illustrate 3 of the new mechanisms in this expansion that all of the heroes use, with some exceptions. The Man Out of Time ability is present on many of the cards in this set except for Falcon Caps. If you play a card with this ability and use it, the card will stay in play until your next turn, and then automatically get played again, giving you its ability and attack or recruit bonuses again, and even counting as being played again for the purposes of card synergy. These are like the lingering cards from Dominion, if you want to use that as an example. Many cards also now count all of the other hero classes you play during the turn and give you an increasing amount of bonuses. Remember, class means the various icons that appear underneath the team affiliation symbols that people always make fun of me for not remembering the proper names of, and I still don't remember. Even more cards require the Savior status in order to fully use. To be a Savior, and I'm not talking about from The Walking Dead, you must have at least 3 bystanders in your victory pile. Fortunately, there are many ways to get bystanders in this set. Case in point, the next hero, the Falcon version of Captain America. He's adept at rescuing bystanders and even has a card that he can reveal to keep a player from gaining a wound and replace it with a bystander in his own pile. Steve Rogers, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., mixes the multi-class, Savior, and Man Out of Time abilities together, and even has a card that benefits from playing multiple S.H.I.E.L.D. heroes at the same time. The Winter Soldier, aka Bucky Barnes, excels at using the Man Out of Time ability and can even confer it on other cards that he has, which helps for one of his cards that requires playing 7 cards in a turn. How many times can I say cards in one sentence? Agent X-13 is an Agent Carter-esque spy from World War II who works best with lots of other S.H.I.E.L.D. cards in hand. She has Woman Out of Time abilities as well. One of the new masterminds is a souped-up Baron Zemo. You must be a savior to challenge him, and his master strikes kill bystanders in your pile, which makes that difficult. But you can always spend 2 recruit points when you fight a villain in the city to rescue a bystander from the stack, so long as he is the mastermind. He leads the villain group known as the Masters of Evil World War II version. The original Masters of Evil is in the base game and features a weaker Zemo himself. Most of these villains capture bystanders as an ambush and require you to be a savior to gain their beneficial fight abilities. Arnim Zola is the other mastermind, and he has the Ultimate Abomination ability, which says that he gets an attack bonus equal to all of the printed attack bonuses in the headquarters, and his Master Strikes filter out weak attack cards from the HQ on top of that. He always leads Zola's Creations, a collection of monsters with a weaker Abomination ability, which means they always gain an attack bonus if the hero in the HQ underneath their spot in the city has a printed attack bonus, and that's what they gain. There are 4 new schemes in the game as well, with 2 very interesting ones. The Unbreakable Enigma code forces you to play a guessing game every time you want to fight the Mastermind. Change the outcome of World War II shifts the number of spaces in the city constantly as you go from city to city along Hitler's path of destruction through Europe. And that is the Captain America 75th Anniversary expansion for Marvel Legendary. On to my final thoughts.
I believe I have uttered these exact words before, but they're really apt. And that is to say, it would take a lot for me to dislike an expansion for Marvel Legendary, because Legendary itself is awesome. I've just come to love this game more and more and more over time, not less. And Captain America is not an exception to this. It is a solid expansion. It's putting it in the hierarchy of these small box expansions like Paint the Town Red, Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know that it's one of my favorites. I think that it's better than, say... I think it's better than Fantastic Four. I think it's better than the Fear itself. And a lot of people hate that one, but I like that one, but it's just not among the top tier ones. Whereas I think Paint the Town Red might be my favorite just because of how many cool characters are in it. But having said all of that, the Captain America expansion is solid. I was actually surprised by how much I enjoyed it, because I like Captain America. I don't think that's a controversial statement for anyone to say, but I think that he's not one of my favorite. He's just kind of a solid character. I like some of the other Avengers better, and I like some of them less in Captain America, but he's just not particularly notable compared to, say, Spider-Man. But this is a good set, and it shows off some characters I hadn't really thought of about being in the set, and as well as new versions of Captain America that are kind of weird and quirky. I do like the Winter Soldier. He's unaffiliated with, I think is kind of a bummer. Is he never affiliated with any kind of team in the book? In the comic books? I guess not. But I like his cards. They're very interesting, and including like his ultimate cards, or not even his ultimate card, but some of his mid-tier cards, which require you to play more and more and more cards. But that's a very interesting strategy to go towards. The old school Captain America, even though I think the artwork looks a little bit too goofy, like they had a new artist reproduce old-looking artwork. I think they should have just reused the artwork from the original series, including the titular or the notable Captain America punching Hitler artwork that gets shared on my Facebook wall every 4th of July. They should have just done that. But other than that, superficially, I think those cards are great. The whole man at a time aspect, which is a lot of the different cards in the set, the agents as an X-13, who is in this set, who's also very interesting, also has it in Winter Soldier, but it's most notable on Cap 1941, and it's just a great mechanic, because this was actually I told this to the people I was playing with and who had never played Dominion before, and they're like, okay, but in Dominion, they have that came along in one of the other expansions, the lingering cards, that you play them, and then they stick around to the next turn, and much like with those cards from Dominion, it's hard to remember that. But if you do, they're great. And I love trying to kick off their abilities. Some of them happen automatically. Some of them you have to have card synergy, as you do with so many other abilities in Legendary. And I think it adds a lot to the game. I really enjoyed that. I love that so many of the cards, especially the Steve Rogers, Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. cards, and the X-13 cards, have to do with other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. So I love it when the game incentivizes you to potentially keep around some of your starting unit cards. You don't have to, not all of them, because so many more cards in this set have the shield symbol, especially if you play with, like, say, Nick Fury from the base set, things like that. But hey, it's great that your normal cards can have some sort of extra benefit now. Your officers and your agents, or agents and troopers. So I really appreciated that one. X-13 herself is really interesting too. What other new abilities are there? I mean, there's so much I can cover. With the masterminds and the villains, you now have the Abomination, which is another thing that it's not stellar and earth-shattering, but it's potentially very powerful. It actually makes you strategically want to potentially buy cards from the lineup to reduce the power of one of the monsters or the villains in the cityscape in order just to keep its power level down, especially when you're fighting Zola as a mastermind who has the ultimate Abomination, which can be incredibly frustrating. I kind of put it up there with Fear itself's Uru Enchanted, which could be incredibly powerful for the heroes that you had to fight in that set in the Commander. But yeah, there's just a lot of very interesting things going on in this set. You also have the cards that the heroes that rely on playing different classes. I think that other characters have had that in the past, but it was based off of color. Whereas, and I don't think the distinction is kind of blurry to me. I have to go back and play some of those older ones, like the original Captain America, who I did not play with this set, although I would like to try it. But just the idea of having these different synergies and focusing on other types of cards in order to have a more balanced deck, I just really appreciate that. So I'm really, really pleased with the heroes in the set. I think the villain groups are interesting with the new Abomination trait. The schemes, let's talk about that for a second, because I don't think I spent a lot of time talking about the schemes in other expansion reviews. But one of them, the city... was a change the course of World War II, where every time a twist comes out, you're in a new city along the path of stopping Hitler during World War II. It's really interesting. I think it's kind of, it's actually easier than some of the other schemes, but the fact that the city keeps changing, you're constantly on your toes to keep the villain count down, and the game is always like cycling through. I just find that fascinating. And it's things like that, together with a lot of the other schemes from other sets that break the game in interesting ways, like the one where the helicarrier is represented by the HQ and you have to keep them from being bombed and destroyed, the different sections of it. Those types of things makes me think that Legendary could have been reformatted as like a Time Stories type game, because it feels like a toolbox. Like they're using the deck building aspects mechanically, but because there's so many different moving parts in the game, you can really switch things around and utilize them in creative ways. I really appreciate that. Like, I would love to see a Time Stories based type of Legendary where you have components being used for multiple different things. I don't know, I just found that very interesting. There's a great scheme where you shield... Well, it's kind of a basic one, but shield agents have turned traitor, so they fled into the villain's city as well. There's the Enigma code scheme where you have to do a guessing game. Is a little bit tough and kind of frustrating, but I also found that very interesting as well. So lots of great stuff in this little box if you're already a fan of Legendary. This even if this set was like the worst of the small ones, it probably wasn't going to change my mind. But as it happens, it's one of the better ones. So that is Captain America 75th Anniversary for Marvel Legendary, a deck building game. If you're a fan of the game, run, don't walk, or walk, don't crawl. Whatever you have to do to purchase it, because it's a lot of fun.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.